to be so much to cover, and perhaps it's not possible to do it in my time. I try my best, and we can proceed a little bit more quickly this time. I'd like to draw your attention to the word hypothesis. Do you understand what a hypothesis is? Hypothesis is a tentative answer. It's a conjecture to the research. It's a speculation of a researcher of how variables are related to one another. So it is not really an answer yet. It is hypothesis, not a thesis yet. Hypothesis. Hypo means lower. So the question is that is it necessary that every research project has to have a hypothesis? I would say that to have a hypothesis is better because you can focus your study and you know exactly what you are looking for. But in a completely new territory, sometimes it is very difficult to form a sensible hypothesis. Take, for example, if you want to land, you're the first time landing in Mars, cannot form any hypothesis about what would be on a planet Mars. Students who would like to work on modalities. Modality is such a new concept. It's so difficult to formulate a hypothesis about modalities. But we can do it later on, but at the very initial stage of modalities, it's very difficult because you would find it difficult to test your hypothesis that you have formulated. Also, it's not all research project needs to have hypothesis, but I would say that about 90% of them have hypothesis. Good hypothesis share at least 4 common characteristics. First, it should be clear, which means all variables must be defined conceptually and operationally. Operational definition means you have to define it in such a way that you can measure. If you find beauty, you have to know how to measure beauty. If you find efficiency, you have to make sure that you can measure efficiency. So it's not that easy sometimes, but the idea is that you must present your operational definitions of the term used in hypothesis. Okay, so it should be clear, should be defined, and it should be specific. And you cannot have too broad hypothesis because you have to make sure that whether you have a hypothesis in a directional way or non-directional way. You specify the direction of the relationship between independent variables and dependent variables. So remember that clear, specific, and testable. Testable with available method. What could it be? You have a very clear and specific hypothesis, but there are no research methods to test them. You want to test the length. You don't have any measuring tape or anything to measure. It's not used to have such hypothesis. Hypothesis should be value-free. This is interesting. In principle, yes, there should not be any biases from the researcher's point of view. But in real life, sometimes value-free is too ideal to achieve. At least you have some of your values in that study already. So it's not a neutral or value-free statement. But anyway, we should try in every possible way to avoid to put our own value into the hypothesis. Otherwise, you will test your own Well, you have a lot of bias, and then you come up with the answer that you would tend to accept or approve your hypothesis. Now, there are two types of hypotheses in research. One is called research hypothesis. Sometimes they call it alternative hypothesis. They use the symbol H1. Research hypothesis is the one that the researcher wants to find out if his data will be supported or not. It usually states in terms of difference, not equal to, greater than, and less than, or in what way independent variables affect the dependent variables. Okay. Another one is called statistical hypothesis. Sometimes we call it null hypothesis. Have you heard of this word before? You see, and use the symbol H for H. In this null hypothesis, the researcher is testing against his data. They don't test research hypothesis. They test the null hypothesis. It is therefore stated in terms of no difference, equal to, which means the independent variables have no effect on dependent variables. That's why we call it null hypothesis. Since the null hypothesis, there is no relationship between independent and dependent variables, or independent variable has no effects on dependent variables. So by rejecting the null hypothesis, would result in accepting the research hypothesis. And failing to reject null hypothesis would result in denying the research hypothesis. Just remember this rule. Research hypothesis, statistical or null hypothesis. It is the null hypothesis that we are testing against it with our data. Okay, I give you an example of the research hypothesis and the null hypothesis. If you want to study the health of the babies in the urban and rural area, in Singapore there is no rural area. Maybe it's very difficult to understand, but for those who are from other countries, you know the urban area is different from rural area. And your hypothesis would use the firstborn baby, the weight of the firstborn baby as an indicator for health. So you put a hypothesis like this: the average weight of the firstborn babies in urban and rural areas are different. They're not the same. This is called non-directional. We don't know which one is greater, which one is less, but it's different. Or you can put it, the average weight of firstborn babies in urban area is greater than the firstborn babies in rural area. This is directional weight. And then you collect the data, go to the hospital and get the firstborn baby weights in the rural area and urban area and compare the means of the weight of those two groups, whether they are different, whether they are greater than the other group as we suspected or we speculated in our hypothesis. Okay. You can put a research hypothesis like it. There is a strong correlation between cigarette smoking and lung cancer. This is the research hypothesis. In null hypothesis term, you will say there is no correlation between cigarette smoking and lung cancer. In terms of the average weight of the firstborn, the null hypothesis will be there is no difference between average weight of the firstborn in urban and rural. There is no relation between cigarette smoking and lung cancer. It is this null hypothesis that we use statistics to test it. We hope to reject the null hypothesis. That's why we can accept our research hypothesis. Okay. What is this testing when we talk in this statistics class in your next situation? Okay. Now, talk about another concept, variables. Can you give a definition of variables? We use a lot of this word in a lot of places, variables. What is a variable?
Things that could go wrong.
Okay. Anything could go wrong, according to Murphy's law.
Murphy's.
Assumption. A variable is it can be the thing that you want to study. Simply put it is you study the variable when you do research. You study the variable. You study the relationship between variables, how they affect one. So it could be a person, a place, a thing, a phenomenon, whatever you want to try to measure. A variable varies. Anything that doesn't vary cannot be classified as a, it is a constant. It's not a variable. You see, it means that they must have more than one value. They must have. If you want to study something among the Catholic nuns, gender is not a variable because they're all female. Unless you have male nuns, then gender could be as the variable. Okay, types of variable. In research, we have independent variables. This variable stands alone. It's not affected by other variables. That's why we call it independent. For example, the age of a person seems to be independent. And other factors such as what they eat, how much they eat, how much they go to school, how much they watch television, are not going to change the person's age, but age will play a role in those activities of others. Independent. Dependent, as the name suggests, is the variable that its value depends on the change of other variables. It is these dependent variables that researchers want to understand. In summary, dependent variables can be described as cause, and dependent variable can be described as the effect, cause and effect relationship. Hypothesis is simply a conjecture of a researcher on the relationship between independent and dependent variables. There are probably three kinds of relationships that could take place. It's called asymmetrical, asymmetrical, not symmetrical. Means that then variable was unchanged independent in the dependent variables. Anything. But another kind of relationship could be symmetrical, which means equal. Two things happen at the same time, but there is no causal relationship between the two. For example, every time the longan trees yield the fruits in Chiang Mai, there is political troubles in Bangkok every year. This is an extreme example, but you have to be careful. Sometimes two things just happen and they are not correlated.
Longan politics.
Longan politics. You remember this symmetrical relationship. And also another type of relationship can be called reciprocal relationship. Both can be caused and both can be effects. If it is going on for a while, you don't know which one is caused, you don't know which one is effect. For example, profit and investment. When the profit changes, you have more profit, you tend to invest more. And when you invest more, you earn more profit. And when you earn more profit, you invest even more. This is the simple. We don't know which one is the cost, which one is the effect. It is the first kind of relationship that researcher is interested in. We are not interested in the symmetrical or reciprocal relationships of the value. We want to know what is the cost and what is the effect. So when you test the hypothesis, you have to bear in mind that perhaps what you're testing is just symmetrical or just reciprocal. You see. Now, third kind is the intervening variable. Intervening, as the name suggests, something that intervenes, something that impacts the relationship between independent and dependent. Usually, the intervening variables is caused by independent variables, and is itself a cause for the change in independent variable. I would give you an example like this. Okay. You have noticed that highly educated people tend to spend more money than the people with low level of education. So you have two variables: level of education and money spending. You think that as the education arises or going higher, people tend to spend more money. See that we spend a lot of money being highly educated people. And you don't get the construction worker from Singapore to come to Chiang and spend the money that they spend. Maybe there is a relationship between education and money spending, but it could be intervened by some other variable. If you take away that other variable, the relationship between independent and dependent, between the level of education and the level of money spending is gone. In other words, it is the level of education that perhaps income. It is the high level of education that causes the income of a person to rise, and then they have enough money or more money to spend. That's why higher spending, higher education, higher spending. What if the higher education doesn't give any higher income, and then we will see that level of money spending will probably be the same. It's not affected by education. Thailand is very strange. You see, if you work with the government, I spent 9.5 years outside Thailand pursuing higher education. All of those years were not counted for my salary increase in Thailand. So my salary stayed the same as 9 years ago. And when I come back, I found myself so low comparing to the other people. You see. So education doesn't increase my income, and then my spending will probably be the same as 9 years ago. That's it. You find this strange strategy of human development process in the country. Okay. Failure to take intervening variables into account can cause the wrong estimate relationship between independent and dependent. So that's bear in mind. How do we measure that? Take for example, if you want to compare the cars, see, I don't know how many cars you have in your country, but if you want to go and buy a new car, there is Honda, Toyota, Nissan, and Mitsubishi. How do you compare? Which one is better? You have to develop some criteria to use as an indicator to measure those four different brands of the cars, like factors like style, sales service, economy, efficiencies of the engine, things like that. And then you assign numerical values in terms of scale. Have you heard of like a scale? You have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you just assign a value to those variables, and then you combine, get the average. Then you know that which one is better than the other. But anyway, the way we measure variables in research, there are levels of measurement. We call that scale. The nominal level of measurement or nominal scale is what? It's a variable that you can only categorize by labeling them in a mutually exclusive type. You don't know which one is higher, which one is lower. There is no ranking order between categories. So, like a city of birth, gender, car brands, marital status, any numerical values you assign to these would make any sense in terms of mathematics. Like you might come across in a questionnaire, they put 1 for male, 2 for female. 2, 1 and 2 is different only. You cannot say that 2 is greater than 1. You can go faster. Ordinal level of measurement or ordinal scale. At this level, you can categorize. And also, you can put it in order. You know which one is higher, which one is lower, but you don't know how much higher or how much lower. You don't know the interval between the ranking of the variable. Let's say language ability. You have beginner, intermediate, and advanced. You know that intermediate is higher than beginner, but you don't know how much higher. And you know that advanced level is higher than intermediate, but you don't know how much higher. So I like that scale type of questions like strongly disagree to strongly agree. It's also ordinal scale, ordinal level of measurement. You know which one is higher, which one. So that's all we do. Okay. Interval scale, interval level of measurement. At this level, you can categorize, you can rank, and then you can measure the interval between the neighboring variables, which means you know which one is higher, which one is lower, and you know how much higher and how much lower between the two variables. Say temperature. Temperature, the first day that we had is probably 15. Temperature now is probably 25. There is 10 degree difference between first day temperature and today temperature. And every 10 degree, you know that which one is colder, right? Which one is cold. But you see, temperature has no true 0 point. So you can make a ratio. You cannot compare them in terms of ratio. You cannot say that this one is twice as cold as that one. You know, If you have like a 10 degree and 20 degree, you can say it's 10 degree difference, but you cannot say that 10 degree is twice as cold or twice colder than 2. And between 20 and 30, you have 10 degree difference, but you cannot compare it to observation. Normally, we feel we are cold or hot by comparing to what? If you cold or hot, comparing body temperature. You compare to body temperature. What is your normal body temperature? 36.7. And in Thailand, we say 37. So we don't want the decimal point. But anyway, anything higher than 37, you feel cold. Anything lower than that, you feel cold. The closer to the 0 Celsius, the much colder in every degree of Celsius drop. You know, if it drops from 37 to 36, 35, 34, you don't feel much different. But if it drops from 15 to 14 to 13, you feel shivering on. So that is called interval level of maturity interval scale. The last scale is what we call, let's say IQ is also. You cannot say that a man who has 140 IQ is twice smarter than a man 70 IQ. There is no 0 IQ for that. There is no true 0 point. Okay. Last one, ratio scale. Ratio level of measurement. At this level, you can categorize. You can rank order them. You can infer equal intervals. And then also you can compare them in terms of ratio. Because that is a true 0 point. Things like height. If you are 180 and the other person is 90, we can say that first person is twice taller than the second person. Age, weight, income. Okay. If you have $50,000, I have 25, and then you have twice more, 2 times income than my income. Why do we have to know about the scale? What good is it? Why is it necessary?
When you have frog porridge, to kill the frog, you put it in the cold water and you heat it up slowly. Then the interval of the temperature rises gradually,
Yes.
and then the frog is ready to be eaten. He will not jump out from the pot.
Well, that's an interesting answer, but I think
Because he used to be.
yeah.
It's.
You can adjust.
Adjust.
Yeah.
Killing yourself. Like the baggy of the dog. They hit the dog until the chicken until he bleeds to death.
No, the scales that we learned from nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio is going from lowest to highest. And they are cumulative in nature, which means the ratio scale has all the properties of the lower scale. The interval scale would have all the properties of the lower scale. And the ordinal scale would have ordinal and also nominal scale characteristic, but not the other way around. We have to learn these scales because there are certain restrictions in statistics that you can use. You cannot calculate the average or the means of the nominal scale. It's not possible. They just separate them one from another. Now, we have about 30 minutes. Let's say research this time. research design is just a roadmap of doing research. If you have a good research design, you have a good chance to succeed in finishing your research work. Okay. A good research design will help the researcher to progress smoothly and rapidly as well. It also enhances the internal and external validity of the research. We talk about that later. Example. Okay. Now, I would like to show you an example of the research design called experimental research. Have you ever heard of the concept Pygmalion effect? Pygmalion. What is it? Pygmalion effect is something like this. If other people would think about you in certain way, you would tend to be that type of the person that other people think. If the teacher say that all students are stupid, students tend to be stupid. It is like a self-fulfilling prophecy that you receive. Have you watched the movie called My Fair Lady? Yes. That's the idea from George Bernard Shaw about the Pygmalion effect on the flower girl. I watched it when I was in high school, probably. Long time ago, still black and white at the time. But I still remember the last was in the movie. If you don't remember the story, I can tell you a little. See, that is a flower, low class, low manner, low everything. That's flower in certain part of England. And the professor kind of gambled. I don't remember the exact one, but the hypothesis is that I can change this to be a high class lady. And they train her. They correct the pronunciation and everything, the way she eats, and manners and the dress. And finally, the test comes. They would take her to a beautiful banquet. But at that time, if they found out that you are not from high class people, high echelon, this is the time. And then that would be a criminal punishment. And then the exciting part is that when they introduce this girl sitting at a table like this, and there's one person talk to another, talk to. I think she must get caught to come to the masters, and but they're not. They were guessing that this girl are from princess of this country, Europe, of the country. The word that the flower lady said, Professor Higgins said, Professor Higgins, I can be the flower girl or a high class lady. Depends on what other people think of me and treat me. If you treat a person like a flower girl, you will always be able to flower. Yes, true. This is called Pygmalion effect. Now, there is two scholars, Robert Rosenthal and Lena Jacobson. They want to find out if this is true in a classroom setting. This Pygmalion effect is true in the classroom setting. So they decided to do a research called Pygmalion in the classroom. Okay. Now, the title of the research, Pygmalion in the classroom. the concept used in this research, or the theory behind this research, is Pygmalion. The hypothesis is that teachers' expectations on the performance of the students have the effect on the academic performance of the students. So this is gonna be experimental. And then pick one school in a low income community to be a place to study. Now this is the insight. Okay. You see this diagram, the table. Let me explain. EG means experimental group. The group that you put any treatment in it to see the effect that it will change something. CG is the control group that you put nothing. There's no treatment. Treatment in this case is like an independent variable in the hypothesis. Okay. Now they divide people into two groups. I think about what. Okay, in the state, in the beginning of the school year, they will have a pre-test for the students. The one who is clever, who is gifted and talented, will be put into a class. And the other one will be a little bit slow learner, will be put into another class. So you have two groups of students, bright and not so bright, okay, dull students. And then they made an announcement. Every teacher in the school knows the name of the student in the, call it A group, excellent group. And then C or D group, not so. Okay. Now, but the way they do research is interesting. They mix the student. They randomize it, the random selection. But they don't tell the teacher. Only the researcher knows. The two groups are now mixed. Not one group better than. But the teacher of the whole school don't know this. And they want to test. So they all test the student. Of course, the pre-test is almost the same, because we mix the student order. After the year pass, they do the test again. We call it post-test. You know, the experimental group, the group that people, the group that the teachers in the school believe that they are good, tend to be a high performance student. The other group is really very low. You follow me? Why is that the case? Because the teacher has something in mind. This group are clever. This group are not clever. And maybe throughout the years, through this word of encouragement or whatever, I don't know whatever happened, but it affects it. It affects the performance of the student. So if you follow this diagram, the pre-test, we did the test for the experimental group, we call it O1, observation 1. And we did the test for the control group, we call it observation 2. Now for the first group, we put treatment. Treatment is the knowledge of the teacher about the performance of the student. And then the post-test is O2. So difference in O2 and O1. The score in post-test and pre-test, we call it difference in experimental group. Okay, it's the same with the control group that we don't put any credit. Difference between pre-test and post-test would be called DC. Now, that's the explanation of the. To confirm that any changes in academic performance is the result of the treatment or independent variable X. The result that we received from the experiment should be as following. O2 should be weighted forward because of treatment X. And O2 should be greater than O4. And DE should be greater than DC. O2 greater than O1 because of the treatment. You can do with this all kinds of things. Like Pastor Gerard said, the effect of putting priest collar on the priest would affect the behavior or not. You have to random selection the minister got into two groups. One is the experimental group, the other one is the control group. It's the random selected. And then you do the attitude measurement with or without priest collar. The first group, you ask them to put priest collar, they go out into the market and be well behaved and more self-control and things like that. And then you can just accept your hypothesis. But if there is no difference in behavior, you can conclude that the priest collar doesn't have the effect. Ministers.
It is the effects of the audience. Because when people are called to test the average street area, the tourist loss from Korea comes down, we all quickly.
Yes.
They ask for bread. Yes, not letting you pray.
Yes, it's the all right. So
And in the nursing home, the nuns, they usually take off. Because if they are walking through the ward,
yeah.
everybody wants the
Want the
nun
right.
attention. So she cannot do her work.
Wow.
So sometimes the collar opens doors,
Uh-huh.
sometimes the collar creates aggressive behavior, like in Jerusalem. You have to take off the collar
Why?
when there is Holocaust survivors in your midst who remember the trauma of Catholic priests keeping silent during the time of the Nazi.
He didn't stand up for me.
Yes, so they have this trauma. So if it causes pain to someone, then don't use it. But if it opens the door, like in Guyana, it opened the door to the Norfolk community, use it by all means.
Okay. Now let me conclude with this example. Are you on the same page with me? Just get back to the table. Okay. So you get the detail. What is this one? You get it? Okay. Now, you see, I had the privilege to stay at headquarters of King's College one time. Sweden. That's so. Pastor Gerard gave me a lot of books to read because that's the way he keep ties, and he didn't have to pay much attention to it. So, but one book is very interesting. Howard University, Howard Medical School. They did an experiment. They want to know the effect of pain over patients. So they divide the patients into two groups. Randomly selected. One group called experimental group, they have someone to pray for. Honestly, pray for. The other group receive regular treatment without being prayed for. They want to find out that the chance of survival of those patients will be significantly different or not. And you guess the result.
Yeah.
That's the hypothesis. That's the research hypothesis. But the null hypothesis, they put it, there's no difference. So they measure and then they fail to reject the null hypothesis, which means that there is no difference between the two groups. But when I read that research, I have many things to mind. You see, there are so many variables that are not controlled. Perhaps the phase of rotation plays a significant role also. And this things is the sovereignty of God kind of forced to God to heal this person and not heal this person. But that is the ideas of experimental research. Not very far from Chiang city, perhaps 10-15 kilometers. There are two villages. These two villages are poor. People have malnutrition, starting from the head of the village to almost everyone. And then the team from the university went there and observed how and what the people eat. And they are so ignorant about nutrition science. They don't know which one is good for what they eat, whatever they have been eaten from the ancestor up to now. They have beans, they have a lot of beans, they have eggs, they sell those beans and eggs. And then they buy, some salted seafood and some MSG, and some chilies, and sort of thing. So they decided to do the experiment. So they did Preecha. They measured with health indicators of these two villages. Okay, they are all the same. One village, they sent a team to teach the people how to eat and eat. But it's so common. Instead of put MSG, put a lot of beans, peanuts, and everything. They don't change their diet, but educate them how to eat more protein and things like that. And the other one with no training, no supervising. Just like that. By the end of the year, first the health score of the first group, O2 is better than first head is better than previous. The second group, the control group, remain unchanged, remain the same. You see, it is the ignorance that caused malnutrition, not the poverty. That's a simple as that experimental. You write your study group into two groups. Divide them in such a way that there is no bias. Random select the people into the group. If you want to teach English, a new style of teaching English, you want to test if it is more effective or not, you can do this. Like at one time, there's a man in Bangkok. He suspected that the reason that the school children in countryside cannot speak English because the teacher doesn't have a proper teaching method. Teacher themselves cannot speak English. How can you teach students to speak English? So they decided to do experiment. They asked the teacher not to teach English for 1 year, but using the video. At that time, they still use the video tape teaching, and of course they give training to the teachers to help, but no more teaching one schooling. And you imagine that even the mountain speak English exactly the same as the children in the top school in Bangkok. So this is experimental research. Just you can apply it to your line of work or your thesis or whatever you see. When the missionary set foot in very remote area of Chiang, before there was a lot of problems, alcoholics, gambling, stealing, burglary. Once people came to Christ, and the crime rates of the city or the village decreases significantly. So you can apply this research methodology into your work, the way you feel, provided that you understand the design experiments. Have any more questions to ask? I will stop here, just wait, open for the question, Q&A.
We can speak to them.
I have a question regarding the school's experimental research. Okay, so I just need to clarify from this example, if there's treatment on the experimental group, which means the students were mixed up, but they were treated better or they given more information to perform. And then the control group would be teachers who do not expect the children to perform.
Yes. What is the question?
What is the control group?
Oh, what is the treatment?
Yeah. What do you do with the control group? You don't.
Well, they don't do anything, but unconsciously the teachers, knows that this group is better than the other one. So they kind of sometimes expect, sometimes could be shoulder tapping and think, oh, you did a very good job and things like that. We never know, but it is the attitude.
Okay, so in the experimental group, they mix up the students, and in the control group, they left them in their ABC classes,
No, there was a control group and experiment group there, they said,
all mixed up.
they all mixed up.
And so what's the control? Not to.
That interesting about this experiment is that even the teachers, they totally believe that this room is the bright student. This room is not bright student.
So
All the teachers in the school believe that way.
So the difference would be the better treatment and better treatment for the A and B group, and then not so high expectations on the C and D group. As a result, there's a difference in their performance.
Could be, yes. Yeah. Let's put it this way. You see how much effect the role of parent on people. You go to the prison, everyone you ask to say that one time my parents said that I would amount to nothing, I would end up in jail. And they actually end up in jail. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. As a parent, you do that, it has a big valid effect on the children. And they go to school, the teacher said the same thing. Oh, you're so stupid and you will amount to anything in life. You never study, things like that. And then that kind of affect the student unconsciously. It's called Pygmalion. It can be a high class echelon lady or the flower and some people treatment. If the teacher treat you as a bright student, you tend to be bright. If the teacher treats you as a stupid and not so bright student, you tend to be according to the treatment of the teacher. I think the important thing is just remember the design, and then you can apply. The treatment can be anything that you want to find out. What effect the treatment will be on dependent variable. You understand?
Yes.
With the intervening factor in the treatment will be the teacher actually. Because in my previous experience, we actually have this thing about good students and bad students.
Yes.
So sorry about that.
Yes.
Students.
Okay.
In fact, they're literally divided into different sets. But there were points in time where we deliberately mixed them up. And then the teachers advocated to all the needs of the students. We could actually identify that they were weak or not so weak, even if they were mixed up. So it's up to the teacher, how the teacher treats them.
Yes, sometimes it can work the opposite way. Teachers could be so they try to help in Thailand. They try to help the not so smart student more than the already smart. That will affect the experiments. Yes.
I remember when I was about 18, I taught a class of very bad students. A class that the whole school condemned because they're overage. They're like 3-4 years over age, and they're very tall, they're gangster like. And they throw me into this class because I'm a relief teacher. And I'm supposed to teach them math. And so I told them, I'm gonna train them by taking the top school, really the top 3 school, all their exam questions. And then I'm gonna train them, and then they want to beat the top school. So they work really hard.
Yes.
And so in the whole semester, they did so well that at the end, this class has the highest score in the whole school.
Yes.
And that for that standard.
Yes, because we didn't.
This is the competition. So this is a school, and you can do it, you can get it. I'm gonna train you. If you subject yourself to this training, you know, we call it top training. It's just like practice and practice and practice. And they had it.
Yeah.
And I was so happy, and the principal was happy. But
Yeah, that happens in the school setting. You have, sometimes the teachers have more compassion on the lesser group. That's them just coming from.
In the army, there's a saying, there are no bad soldiers, only bad officers.
Okay. Yeah.
I want us to think carefully about that statement. Because the story was told of General MacArthur when he found some soldiers drunk, expecting, when he was a young officer, expecting to be to reprimand the soldier. His commanding officer reprimanded him. He was responsible for the behavior of his subordinates. There are no bad soldiers, only bad officers. So I wonder if we were to change the pay structure for teachers, that if we have failing students, then the teacher will be penalized. Suddenly the teachers would wake up, and the professors as well. But students can also start touching each other. Now the principle of Pygmalion also, I believe, affects in marriages. Actually, there's no bad spouse, there's no bad husband or bad wife. If you hear of someone complaining of the spouse, then it's that person's fault. Because you have the Pygmalion, you have the power of the tongue.
Yeah.
The power of the tongue, the Bible talks about the
Yeah.
power of the tongue to create reality over the child. And that's why. But of course, not to the point where the parent is deceived of the child, or there are cases where there are delinquent spouses and delinquent children, and delinquent soldiers and delinquent students. But the idea of the Pygmalion effect, why it's so appealing to us is because it is a phenomena that we observed and was made into a movie, My Fair Lady,
Yeah.
and so played so beautifully with that final line that you mentioned. If you treated me like a lady,
Yeah.
I would be a lady. If you treat me like a gutter, I'll be a gutter. That's an external phenomena that we observe in the power of the treatment of the tongue
Yeah.
in either blessing or curse.
Yeah.
I think the breakthrough that we have had in this seminar on advanced graduate research is going beyond just phenomena, and in fact, it's going to the very root of education. That could we have the major premise or hypothesis that every soul is ordained for greatness.
Except you would accept being treated unfairly.
And okay, except being treated unfairly, but the premise is still there, that there is no stupid question. Neither is there a ignorant person. If only they have not been deceived. And so the idea being that if it is true that, well, let's put it this way. We would have to prove that it is true, that the purpose of this college or university is to prove the premise, the major premise, or hypothesis on this, that every soul is ordained for greatness. Can we find the genius within our students, within the student body? Can we help that student to identify the greatness that he or she is oblivious to? Most children, even some adults, many adults, go through life without seeing their own worth, and as a result spiral down into all sorts of social evils, ills, unconscious or subconscious. Instead of that ascent of becomes a descent into animal life. So
I think the esteem, self-esteem of a person is affected very much by this Pygmalion around him or her. But it's very good discussion. I have to take off and then I have to go to another meeting, and then I would be in contact with you some this afternoon, whatever. You can contact Pastor Gerard and you can call me. And just let me know. And tomorrow we meet here. Tomorrow we meet here and then we meet. I hope that you learn something.
Yeah.
Now we call it day, morning.